Have you ever sacrificed everything for someone only to return and realize they were never really waiting for you? My name is Jorge. I'm 47, a construction technician from Colombia. For the past 2 years, I've been working under a labor contract in Taiwan, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, just to save enough to give my wife Vanessa the future she always dreamed of. We talked about opening a small beauty salon when I got back, a place she could manage while I took local projects near our town. That was the plan, at least the one I thought we shared. But one Monday morning just before my flight home, a message lit up my phone. I've moved on. I found someone who sees me, really sees me. Attached was a photo, her arms wrapped around her gym trainer. My apartment was no longer mine. Neither was my bank account. In fact, I'd come home to find nothing. If you've ever wondered how a quiet man like me can lose everything and still rise stronger, stay with me. And if this story resonates, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. I wasn't born with much, but I learned early that hard work could buy a simple kind of peace. My name is Jorge Marquez. I grew up in Bucaramanga, Colombia, in a small house with 3 siblings, 1 bathroom, and a mother who stretched every peso like magic. When I met Vanessa, I was already in my 30s, working as a crew supervisor for a local contracting company. She was younger, full of energy, with a bright laugh that seemed too big for our quiet neighborhood. We met at a family friend's birthday party. She was helping with decorations, and I was fixing a broken light bulb above the patio. She teased me for being too serious, said I had sad eyes and a working man's hands, but she smiled at me anyway. That's how it started. We married a year later in a modest church ceremony. No fancy honeymoon, no rented venue, just family music and borrowed flowers. I'd saved enough to put a down payment on a small apartment, and that's where we began our life together. Vanessa talked about someday opening a salon. I told her I'd make it happen even if it meant leaving the country for a few years to earn more. That's how I ended up in Taiwan, a 3-year labor export contract. The money was decent enough to send back and slowly build the life we wanted. I left everything behind my bed, my books, even my dog, so Vanessa could stay comfortable in our apartment while I worked in steel and dust on the other side of the world. Every month I wired home nearly 80% of my paycheck. I kept only enough for my meals and a few basics. She said she was saving it all. She even sent pictures, new furniture, salon catalogs, a small construction team she was considering for renovations. Her messages were full of plans and dreams. "I want you home, mi amor," she'd write. Soon. I believed every word. I told myself this sacrifice would pay off. That maybe I was building more than a home. I was building something lasting with a woman who saw my efforts, who waited for me like I was worth waiting for. But not everything that smiles at you is sincere, and not every plan is mutual. The first signs were subtle. A delayed reply here, a cold video call there. I told myself it was just the time zone difference, or maybe a bad internet connection. But over time, something about Vanessa's tone started to change. She used to call me every night asking if I'd eaten, if I was resting. But those sweet little habits began to fade, replaced by rushed conversations and distracted expressions. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was being too sensitive. After all, long distance takes its toll. I didn't want to sound paranoid or clingy. I was a man working hard for his family. But still, there were cracks forming in the silence. Her background during calls used to show our apartment with its yellow kitchen wall and the small couch we'd bought together. Then suddenly, it was always her in the car, or at her gym, or out with friends. I barely saw the house anymore. She said it was messy. "Don't worry, I'm just keeping busy," she'd laugh. But that laugh, it didn't feel like it used to. Then there were the financial signs. Our shared bank account started showing odd withdrawals. Vanessa and I had agreed I'd send money for savings emergencies and the future salon. But the statements began to show things I didn't recognize: a $600 charge at a boutique gym, then hundreds more at clothing stores I'd never heard of. She said she was investing in her image for the business. I didn't push back. I wanted to believe her. But when I saw a $1 $200 transaction marked Hotel and Spa, I paused. She claimed it was a weekend getaway with her cousin to clear her head. I wanted to ask more, but she became defensive, accusing me of not trusting her. I backed off. I started quietly collecting everything: bank screenshots, phone logs, even timestamps from her social media. Her Instagram, which I used to check once in a while to feel closer to her, had changed too. More gym selfies, less mention of me. One day I saw a post where she wrote, "Strong women don't wait. They build their own lives." That post had 74 likes. One of them was from a man I didn't recognize, some trainer with abs like bricks and a smug grin. My gut told me something was wrong. But when you're 10,000 kilometers away, you learn to doubt yourself before you doubt the person you love. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. Something inside me whispered, "She's not building this life with you anymore. She's building it for someone else." I didn't know the truth yet, but I felt it breathing down my neck. The day I returned to Colombia should have felt like a homecoming. I had counted the weeks, the days, even the hours. I carried 2 suitcases, one with gifts, the other with everything I had left of my old life. I had rehearsed in my head how I'd surprise Vanessa, how I'd walk through the door and see her smile, maybe even cry a little. After 2 years of concrete dust and steel noise, I was ready to finally breathe again. But when I stood in front of our apartment door, something felt wrong. It was slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The echo in the hallway told me everything before I even saw the inside. The apartment was empty, not just cleaned, stripped, no curtains, no furniture, even the wall clock was gone. A faint outline remained on the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. I called out her name once. No answer, just my own voice bouncing back at me. I stood there not knowing whether to laugh or collapse. Then my phone buzzed. It was a WhatsApp message from Vanessa. No greeting, no explanation. Just this: "I've moved out. I'm with someone who sees me for who I really am. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't wait anymore. He supports my dreams. We're happy. Please don't make this harder." Attached was a photo. Vanessa in sportswear arms wrapped around the same trainer I'd seen in her Instagram likes. They stood outside a gym smiling like they'd just won a prize. She looked relaxed, radiant, like none of this had ever involved me. I opened our banking app, heart pounding. The balance $13.72. The joint account I'd funded for 2 years was drained. I checked our emergency savings. Gone. I checked the secondary account we'd opened for the salon. Zeroed out. I sat down on the bare floor, phone in one hand, the other hand clenching my return ticket. I had built this life for us. I had broken my back on foreign soil so she could have comfort and freedom. And she had replaced me. Quietly. Completely. No tears came. Not yet. Just silence and a hollow weight in my chest. I spent that night sleeping at my cousin Diego's apartment on an old sofa with one suitcase beside me and a new question forming in my mind. Not why did she leave, but how far had she planned this, and how much deeper did the betrayal go? The next morning I walked into our local bank like a man on autopilot. I hadn't even unpacked my bags, but I needed answers before I could sleep again. The teller at the front desk, Maria, recognized me from years ago. She blinked when she saw me and said, "Welcome home." I nodded, managing a weak smile. I wasn't really home anymore. I was somewhere between the life I thought I had and the wreckage she left behind. I asked to print out 2 years of bank statements, every transaction, every transfer, every credit card charge. I took the thick stack of papers and spread them out on Diego's kitchen table that afternoon, coffee in one hand, a highlighter in the other. That's when the real picture began to emerge. A pattern ugly and deliberate. And monthly gym payments that started small and gradually doubled. Hotel bookings under Vanessa's name, always over weekends when she claimed to be helping her aunt. Beauty clinic expenses, personal training sessions, spa treatments, boutique clothing stores, even online supplements, all paid from our joint accounts. All funded by my labor abroad. Then came the car payment. I didn't recognize the leasing agency. When I followed up, I found the car wasn't even in Vanessa's name. It was in his. Her trainer, the man in the photos, was living off my sweat quite literally. She'd bought him a motorbike, paid 3 months of rent up front for an apartment near the gym, and even funded what looked like a beach retreat. Every time I skipped a meal in Taiwan to save a little more, she was buying protein powder and designer sneakers for someone else. I searched her name on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Her main accounts were mostly inactive, curated to look harmless. But then I found her second profile. Private, but not private enough. Mutual friends had tagged her in a birthday video. She was in it, clearly dancing in a fitted dress, blowing a kiss toward the camera, holding hands with the trainer. The caption read, "Vanessa and Dario Power Couple of the Year." Dario, that was his name. I stared at that name, that photo, those posts for a long time. Then I began to collect everything. Screenshots, bank transaction IDs, time-stamped messages, even her WhatsApp voice notes where she mentioned getting him something nice with Jorge's last transfer. It wasn't just infidelity, it was premeditated financial betrayal. Calculated. Cold. She didn't just leave me, she looted me. And somewhere in the haze of disbelief, another feeling began to rise, sharper, quieter, and far more dangerous than heartbreak. Resolve. I was never the loud one, never the guy who slammed doors or shouted in public. I fix problems, I take responsibility. And for most of my life, that made me easy to overlook. Vanessa must have thought I'd just disappear, quietly lick my wounds, cry in some corner, and move on. Maybe that's what I would have done years ago. But not this time. The betrayal was too calculated, too cruel. So I did what I do best. I started planning. First, I backed up everything I had collected: bank records, photos, social media screenshots, and voice notes onto 2 flash drives, one for safekeeping, one for legal use. Then I started asking around for a good lawyer, not just someone affordable, but someone sharp, someone who'd handled cases like mine. That's when a friend from my old job gave me a name, Clara Velez. He said, "She doesn't just fight for men like you. She makes sure you leave with your dignity intact." I called her the next day. We met in a small office above a bookstore downtown. Clara was calm, direct, and didn't blink when I laid everything on the table. She flipped through the records while sipping black coffee and listening to my story in silence. Then she looked up and said, "You've got more than just heartbreak here, Jorge. You've got evidence enough to build a case of financial misconduct, fraud, and marital abandonment." It was the first time someone said it out loud. She broke the law, not just your heart. Clara outlined our first steps. I'd officially document all transfers Vanessa made from our joint accounts that didn't benefit the household. We'd build a timeline linking each transaction to non-marital use hotel stays, gifts, rent for another man. Every peso used for the trainer would be ammunition in court. Then Clara asked a simple question. "Are you ready to fight for what's yours?" I nodded. That night, I called an old friend from high school, Julian, who now worked in IT security. I asked if he could help recover deleted messages and files from my home computer and Vanessa's old tablet, which she'd carelessly left behind. Within 24 hours, we had even more voice messages she thought were gone, private chats with Dario, talking about milking Jorge dry before the divorce and plans to transfer everything to Brazil if I pushed back. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to win. Because somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten that a quiet man watching closely is more dangerous than a loud one reacting blindly. And now I had eyes wide open. By the end of that week, Clara and I had a plan, a methodical, precise strategy to hold Vanessa accountable, not just emotionally, but legally and financially. She had moved fast, thinking I wouldn't notice until it was too late. But she had made a mistake. She left a paper trail. And now we were going to follow it. Step 1 was to protect what little I had left. Clara advised me to open a new individual bank account at a different institution, one where Vanessa had never been listed. I immediately rerouted my remaining income and stopped all automatic transfers to our old joint accounts. Whatever money was still moving in my name, I now controlled. Step 2, we filed a formal petition to freeze marital assets. With the bank records proof of Vanessa's non-marital spending and evidence of abandonment, the judge approved a temporary freeze. This meant she couldn't touch anything else, no more withdrawals, no selling shared property, no sneaky credit card charges. But the real key was timing. Clara explained that who files first in a divorce often controls the narrative, especially when international laws are involved. Vanessa hadn't filed yet, probably thinking she had time to manipulate the outcome. But before she could act, we struck first. We filed the divorce petition under Colombian law, citing marital abandonment fraud and misappropriation of joint funds. Legally, this forced the proceedings to take place under our jurisdiction, not wherever she was hiding with her trainer. Then came the wild card. Julian, my friend in IT, had found deleted emails and chat logs between Vanessa and Dario. One message stood out. If he starts asking questions, we'll say it was all to support my mental health. Play the victim. That always works with him. Another. Once we have enough saved, we'll disappear. I'll sell the apartment before he comes back. He won't even have a key. These weren't just cruel. They were proof of intent to deceive. Clara's eyes lit up when she read them. This takes it from a simple divorce to a potentially criminal case, she said. We attached everything, every screenshot, every time-stamped wire transfer, every voice message to a 60-page legal dossier and submitted it as evidence. It wasn't just a legal response, it was a preemptive strike. While Vanessa posted gym selfies and motivational quotes on her hidden Instagram, we quietly prepared a legal ambush. We also hired a financial investigator to trace any assets she had tried to hide. He confirmed what we suspected: she had sent small amounts of cash to a private account under a false name, likely Dario's cousin, to mask it from our joint statements. That alone gave us grounds to pursue financial fraud. Finally, Clara coordinated with the Civil Court's Asset Recovery Unit. If Vanessa failed to return funds voluntarily, we could seize her vehicle, garnish any future income, and even file a civil damages claim for emotional and financial harm. The trap was ready. All we needed now was for her to walk into it. And she would. Because people who think they've already won are the easiest to surprise. And I was no longer the man she thought she left behind. The official court notice reached Vanessa a week later. According to the process server, she was in the middle of a yoga class at the gym when he approached her with the envelope. She refused to sign, at first acted confused, even offended. But when she saw my name and Clara's law firm on the letterhead, her smile disappeared. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen, but I didn't answer. She called again, then sent a voice message. Jorge, we need to talk. Please don't do anything rash. This isn't what you think. I waited until the next morning to respond. Just a short message. We'll talk in court. That same evening, she showed up unannounced at my cousin Diego's apartment, where I was still staying. I opened the door and saw her standing there in a designer tracksuit, holding a takeaway coffee cup, like it was a peace offering. She looked nervous more than I'd ever seen her. Gone was the confident tone from her text messages. Gone was the smug look from her gym photos. "Can we please talk privately?" she asked. I let her in. She started with the usual, "Things got complicated. I was confused. You were so far away. I felt lonely. I didn't plan for any of this to happen." I didn't say a word, just listened. Then she switched tactics. "Look, we don't need to ruin each other. Let's split things fairly. 50-50. No lawyers, no drama. We both made mistakes." That's when I laughed. Not loud, just a small, bitter exhale. "Vanessa," I said calmly, "you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, over and over again. You planned this. You spent my money on another man. You emptied our accounts. You even tried to sell the apartment before I got home." She went pale. I continued. "I have every transaction, every message, every voice note you thought you deleted. I have screenshots of you laughing about how easy I was to manipulate. And I have a legal team that's going to make sure you pay back every single peso you stole." She tried to hold her composure. Her voice cracked. "Jorge, please. I don't have that kind of money. I know," I said. "That's why we're freezing your assets." The silence between us was thick. She looked around the apartment like she was searching for some memory to hold on to some part of me she still controlled. But there was nothing left. "You wanted fairness," I added. "You'll get fairness. But on my terms, not yours." She turned to leave. No final words, no fake tears, just the soft sound of retreat. And that's when I knew the woman who thought I'd break was finally starting to crack. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not in temperature but in energy, clinical, stripped of emotion, built only for facts and consequences. I sat beside Clara at the long wooden bench, wearing the one suit I owned. Across from us sat Vanessa in a sleek black dress and heels, flanked by two attorneys who looked like they'd just stepped out of a commercial for overpriced law firms. Her posture was straight, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. When the judge entered, Magistrata Patricia Gomez, a woman known in legal circles for her intolerance toward financial deception, everyone stood. She didn't waste time with small talk. "We're here today to address the petition for divorce filed by Jorge Marquez against Vanessa Castaño, citing abandonment, financial misconduct, and fraudulent use of joint assets." Vanessa's lead attorney began their argument, "Your Honor." My client acted out of emotional distress. She was left alone for years. Her husband prioritized money over marriage. Any financial transactions can be explained as personal needs during a time of severe emotional hardship. Clara stood, calm, confident. She handed the judge our file, 62 pages of evidence, bank transfers, digital receipts, social media posts, and transcripts of deleted messages recovered by Julian. Then she spoke. "Your Honor, we're not here to debate feelings. We're here to examine facts. This woman used over 42 million pesos of joint funds to finance a secret relationship with another man. She paid his rent, she bought him a motorcycle, she booked hotel rooms and personal training sessions under false pretenses. She claimed to be using the money for mental health, but the records show a coordinated pattern of deceit. Judge Gomez flipped through the pages in silence. Then she asked, "Is it true the defendant attempted to sell jointly owned property while the petitioner was overseas, and unaware Vanessa's attorney stammered?" "We cannot confirm that with certainty." The judge looked up. "I can. The documents show a pending sale agreement signed only by the defendant dated 10 days before Mr. Marquez returned. That qualifies as unauthorized liquidation of marital assets." The room fell silent. Clara leaned forward. "Furthermore, Your Honor, the defendant and her partner referred to Mr. Marquez as a financial mule in private messages and joked about bleeding him dry before vanishing abroad. These aren't the words of someone acting in emotional desperation. They're the words of someone orchestrating a heist." The judge raised an eyebrow, then turned to Vanessa. "Do you have anything to say?" Vanessa's voice was quiet. "I made mistakes. I was lonely. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." The judge nodded slowly. Then she delivered the verdict. "This court finds the defendant guilty of financial misconduct, abandonment of marital responsibilities, and attempted concealment of assets. Therefore, the following orders are made. 1. The petitioner retains sole ownership of the apartment and remaining assets. 2. The defendant will reimburse the petitioner 42 million pesos in misused funds. 3. The defendant will not be entitled to alimony or any future claim to shared income. 4. Should the reimbursement not be fulfilled within 6 months, a lien will be placed on any future earnings or property." Vanessa's shoulders slumped. Her face froze in a half-expression of disbelief and shame. As the judge exited, I stood slowly, not in triumph, but in quiet closure. I had come into that courtroom as the man she thought would fold. I walked out as the man who had taken everything back. I didn't win because I shouted louder. I won because I stayed silent long enough to understand what was really happening. then acted when it mattered most. Vanessa didn't just underestimate me, she underestimated the power of preparation evidence and dignity. Today, I live in a modest apartment that I own fully. No shared keys, no shared accounts. Just peace. I've gone back to work slower pace but steadier. Some weekends I help a friend with his carpentry shop. I still make my own coffee, still save my receipts. Not because I'm paranoid, but because I've learned that trust is earned, not assumed. And if you've made it to this point in the story, take this with you. Some betrayals don't just steal your money, they try to rewrite your story. But you always have the power to take the pen back. If this story moved you in any way, drop a comment like, "Silence isn't weakness." That one simple line lets us know you're still here, that